Okay, so I had a few dreams. Actually, I've had a lot of dreams, right? I think I said that in my last video. This one's about Drake and Rihanna. I'm going to talk about a few different dreams with a few different celebrities, and this is my interpretation of it. So, it was at nighttime. The first dream I'm going to talk about was at nighttime. It was with Drake and Rihanna. And I saw this like dead body with like a body bag over it. And as I went closer to it, the body bag started moving so I could see what it was. And I noticed that it was like an old wrinkly body holding, like laying on the ground, holding like a newborn baby. Okay, like I was saying, I keep getting interrupted here, but it was this dead wrinkly body holding a newborn baby. Then it kind of like freaked me out, and I looked closer, and it ended up turning into a younger version of myself, holding like a toy doll. So I noticed that there was a wall next to that, and my interpretation of the first part of that dream is that God was telling me that He was going to reveal to me and to people that are spiritually dead or lack spiritual insight, the reason why they have hardships and suffering, and that's His promise to us. And that the way that He was going to do that is by putting people into a God-induced sleep while He's doing this, to reveal childhood issues in their past, and with God's strength, work through those childhood issues. And in the end, it would bring revival and deliverance. After that part of the dream, Drake came out of a puff of smoke, and I think he said like, "Oh, I'm tired. I was up all night. I was talking to this girl on the phone all night." And then we were hugging and kissing, and then Rihanna came out of a puff of smoke, and she's like, "Come on, I'm gonna show you what it takes to be famous." And then we walked off together. And I didn't see this part, but it was like an assumption that they showed me, like some like nasty thing of someone eating a baby or something. So the interpretation of that dream was that Drake was saying that his spirit was stirred and awakened by being watchful of evil communication between a girl in a young church, or a church and whoever, and I guess was receiving some spiritual revelation about it and getting judged because of it and receiving some type of wrath because of it. So he was observing evil communication between this girl that leans on people, who is receiving empty promises from them. She leans on them for support and comfort, okay? And Rihanna as well is going through some type of wrath or judgment, okay? Because what she was showing me was how to get the world's glory. And if you basically saying, if you study the promise of God, or if you know it, or this is to reveal the true promise of God, is what basically saying to get the world's glory, what they want you to do is to force the rejection of God's promise by enforcing fear upon them, and then be responsible for your own life, okay? Because Jesus paid the price for us. So what she's basically saying is, if you want world glory, you have to agree to some terms, okay? And that means paying for your own life, all right? And they do this with Christians as well. You know, they deceive them into signing over their soul when they don't really know that's what's happening. And then the devil forces them to work off the debt of their own life. And God's promise says that He pays the price for us. We don't have to pay the price for our own life when we have salvation. Okay? So that was basically the interpretation of that dream, that I was going to get revelation about these things. And just basically bring wisdom to people who are unaware of it. Okay? So the next dream I had was about Rihanna. I was in the car with her. She was going to go do something that I didn't really agree with. I'm sorry, let me take a step back here. So the fact that we were walking together in the night would mean that we were all in agreement with some type of unbelief, okay? Like maybe we had some type of insight, but not full insight. We were all in agreement with either being enlightened on the truth of this matter, And that's all I wanted to say about that dream, okay? All of these are connected, I feel like. So the next dream I had was about Rihanna. I was in the car with her, and she was going to do something that I just didn't want to be part of. So I got out of the car, and I was waiting in the street. And then I just heard like a car crash from far away, and she ended up crashing her own car. And when I was like, oh my God, it was my car actually, but she was driving it. And it was like an accident. And I said like, oh my God, that's the only car I had that doesn't need any work on it. Like, what the heck? So basically what I interpreted was that if you decide to not be in agreement once you're enlightened about what it really takes to have the world's glory through the devil, it might leave you weak, okay? Or being robbed by the devil will leave you weak in the beginning, right? Hold on one second, I need to interpret this. Okay, sorry. So the car crash would entail that, I got out of the car means I'm not in agreement. So that would say that I was, or I'll just say the whole interpretation of the dream. Basically, when you're robbed by the devil, you're cursed with a judgment, okay? Being in the street would mean that me being cursed with the judgment, or this whole process of exposing, would bring catastrophe to this devilish ministry. So this was the whole point of, bringing revelation to this whole situation, the truth of what the enemy does. Being in the street would mean that we're exposing this, or I'm exposing this. And the car crash would just basically wreak havoc on the destiny of this devil's ministry. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about was a quick vision. It was a young Rihanna, like, I don't know, maybe like 12 or 15. Okay, again, I had a vision of Rihanna, a young Rihanna. She was waiting in a cab. She was in the back seat. And I got in next to her. And she just looked like she was so mad at me, right? So what I interpreted with that is that she has so much anger from the things that she's been through and the things that she's seen in the past. Okay? And because of this anger, she is actually willing to wait for an opportunity to be free from it, by getting into God's ministry, but doing it by looking to someone other than the enemy that can lead her or show her the way without suffering some like really major consequences. But it would seem that because of this vision, we were in the back seat. She was young. It seems like she has already suffered a great deal because of what she was involved in. I don't know if she was fully aware or not. But, the consensus of it was that we were going to expose this once we found out about it, or by finding out about it. Okay. So the next vision it was kind of like a dream. This had a prelude to it, but I'm just going to talk about this portion of it. I had gotten to a fight at a party. I was being surrounded. And I ran through this door after I was done. I think I fought like 3 different celebrities. And I'll make another video about the full thing of that. And I ran through, a door and was running up these stairs. And it was like, how the water tower place looks on the inside? There's like the levels around you and you could see. But it was like there was stairs, and to the right you could see like levels. Okay, so there was another young Rihanna. She was putting on makeup. And I looked at her and I smiled and I like shook my butt at her. And she kind of like giggled, and I looked down and remembered I was being chased by an angry Nicki Minaj, okay? And then I just like did a little joke and we both kind of giggled and I kept running. And then Nicki Minaj came very angrily following me up the stairs to get at me or do whatever. Okay, so what I interpreted from that is that Rihanna, because of what she's been through, in the future, what she was doing was trying to conceal her intentions of truly trying to find Christ and be delivered from this wicked life. And because of her, experience of the past, she was forced kind of to do this. This was the way this was her way out by, I guess, knowing in her heart that this is what she wanted, but concealing it by putting on makeup. Um, so me like shaking my butt at her would mean that she was still going through torment of the past. People were, it's not like she just had to deal with her past. No, she was angry and people were tormenting her from the things that she's been through in the past. So that anger is what gave her the drive and what actually helped. But at the same time, like, I think she was aware that this was going to happen, or, you know, she was either just trying to conceal it and at the same time having to deal with this type of torment. But basically what it was saying, that you're going to be tormented, but while you're being tormented, remember that, so that in the future you don't fall back into this. And remember that there's a plan, a devised plan. And so while you're being tormented, I'm going to lead this other person up to a path of righteousness while they're angry about something from their own path. Or if someone's, I'm going to take this opportunity while I'm being threatened to lead this person to heaven. So you hide the true intentions of your heart to protect yourself until this is said and done. And while you're doing that, I'm going to lead this person. I'm going to show her the way to salvation. Because we were both going up the stairs. She was mad. She was angry. She was chasing me. She was threatening me. So, I mean, anger can also mean that someone is spiritually not devoted, right? And it could be because of this trauma. Like, these people want out. So, that was the end of that dream, and that was the interpretation of it. The next one I'm going to talk about was Nicki Minaj and Drake. Okay. I had this a while ago, too. In this dream, it was like a group of people kind of standing around. And Drake came up to me and he's like, oh, hey, yeah, so you make music? And I was like, yeah, blah, 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 whatever we're talking about, I don't know what. And then I saw Nicki Minaj watching us, and she had her arms crossed, and she just looked like really mad, like she was jealous or something that we were talking. And someone handed her a grenade, and she threw the freaking grenade at me, and it exploded, okay? And there's more to that dream too. But I'm just going to interpret that part of the dream because that, I feel like, is what really applies. Okay? So basically, I think what Drake was doing when he came up to me was asking me about worship. My worship. Not the worship of Satan, but the worship of my own. Okay? And what I interpreted with what Nicki Minaj did is that, the grenade would mean that she's in something horrible and she wants to get out of it. Okay, and because her arms were crossed, it would mean that she does not know how to get out of it. She feels like she doesn't have the strength to endure it. Okay, and each one of these dreams has some type of interpretation of losing their strength from the enemy while this is happening. Okay, so I feel like she was watching, whoever talking about worship. She wanted out, but she felt like she was helpless. She couldn't help, or she didn't have the strength to help, or she just didn't have a way to do it. Okay. And the last dream I'm going to talk about, all these dreams I would say I had about over a year ago. I had a dream that I was sitting at a desk, and on the left of me was Drake with a gun at my head, and the right of me was French Montana. And on the other side of the desk was an alien. And on the desk was a contract. Okay? And Drake was just holding this gun to my head, telling me, sign it, sign it. And I think the first time I might have said no. And he cocked it and sign it, So I signed it. However, this contract had two names on it. It had my name, and it had Audrey Graham. Not Aubrey, but Audrey Graham. Okay? So I turned around to sign it, and I kind of sneakily scratched off Audrey Graham because it was an implication that I was signing this agreement with this celebrity. And French Montana kind of seen it and didn't say nothing, And that was the end of the dream. So this kind of ties in with the first one is, people are being threatened into doing business or agreeing ownership of the devil over their own soul and taking on this debt and becoming a slave. Okay, this alien was interpreted as a familiar spirit, an outcast, or a fallen angel that would ultimately end in removing the strength of the devil for whoever is involved, and also end up in this outcast devil or whoever it was, the alien, losing all of his authority. Okay, by people being a witness to this and gaining wisdom and freedom. Okay, so the purpose of that whole scene at the time was being forced into giving the devil ownership over your life, taking on this debt, but ultimately scratching off the name, let's say that loss of strength from the devil, basically. So by scratching off this person's name who forced me to do it, he was going to lose some of his strength, or whoever was going to lose some of their strength at the same time. And the purpose of it was to just bring revival and wisdom. The fact that French saw it and didn't say nothing means that the purpose of this whole thing was to gain wisdom and freedom. Okay. And the last vision I had about this was the number 28 on a wall. It was in black and white. It was in a frame, and it was on a wall, a white wall. Sorry, I'm like really trying to make this video. I keep getting interrupted. So the 28 coming off the wall, I spent a lot of time interpreting that one little vision because that was just like a day ago. The rest of the dreams I mentioned were over like the past year and 2 months, I would say. I know the one where I was being forced into a contract was like around October. Not past October, but the one before. So the number 28 actually is interpreted as a waiting or expectancy period. The frame would mean that this was a God devised plan. Okay. These people could have planned it as well. Or they could have just been pieces to a puzzle, to a God devised plan. And taking the 28 down from the wall would mean that the waiting period's over. Okay. But God's plan is still up there, and God's protection is still up there. So if this has any truth for any celebrities or regular people, I just want to let you know that there is hope and freedom for your soul. You were not born to pay the price of your own soul, and you shouldn't have to be forced to watch all types of crazy stuff and forced into believing things that just are not true about yourself. That's pretty much it. I mean, these were just dreams I had over a long time. I think that this was a, very strategically designed plan of God to really help deliver the people that are involved in all these wicked practices. Because initially being forced into something and then being revealed to it and then forced into doing the same thing, or never knowing about it, and once they get revealed, it's like, okay, now there's going to be judgment for it. God is not going to allow people to suffer without a judgment that follows. Okay. And I will also talk about this last vision I had. I saw myself with a piece of paper, and I took it up. This was in black and white. I took it up to this like demon on a throne, and he was just like sleeping, like whatever. And I just said, "Hey, can you sign this?" And I put it on his lap, and he just like signed it without even looking at it. And I just like ran off. And then I seen this big hand come down and scoop him up out of that throne, like pew, just take his authority from him. So I feel like this is an implication of the downfall of a very evil, powerful leader. If it's not the downfall, then it's the deliverance, and praise God for that. So I just wanted to talk about this plan because it seems like it was not a man-made scheme. This was a devised plan of God to deliver these people and to shed light onto what the enemy is truly doing by deceiving them and you know, basically making them kill God's promise in people's life through deceit and empty promises. So that's pretty much it. Enjoy. Bye.